February 12, 2000. A bitter cold night in Stillwater, New York. A 91-year-old woman's body lies abandoned in a snowbank, her life stolen in a brutal act of betrayal. Her name was Ruth Witter, and the person who helped put her there? Her own step-great-granddaughter, Katherine Seeber. But this isn't just a story of murder. It's a twisted saga of lies, tainted evidence, a fleeting chance at redemption, and a tragic end that no one could predict. What drove an 18-year-old to such a heinous crime, and could she ever outrun her past? Welcome to another deep dive into the shadows of true crime. Today, we're unraveling the haunting case of Katherine Seeber, a young woman from Wilton, New York, whose life became a tragic cycle of violence, punishment, and a desperate search for redemption. In 2000, at just 18, Katherine was convicted of murdering her step-great-grandmother, Ruth Witter, in a robbery gone wrong. But the truth was far murkier than it seemed. Ruth was a beloved widow, a pillar of her family. Her death shocked the quiet community of Saratoga County. Yet, as the case unfolded, it revealed not just a crime, but a web of domestic abuse, flawed forensics, and a justice system that failed to see the full picture. This story hit me hard. I grew up in a small town like Wilton, where trust is everything. A family betrayal like this? It shakes you to your core. So let's dive in and ask, was Katherine a cold-blooded killer, a victim of circumstance, or something in between? Katherine Marie Seeber grew up in a modest mobile home park on Loudon Road in Wilton, New York. Born in 1982, she was a typical teenager, searching for identity, craving independence. But her life was far from easy. Her father had passed away, leaving her adrift, and her mother struggled to keep the family together. By 18, Katherine was vulnerable, caught in a turbulent relationship that would change her life forever. Enter Jeffrey Hampshire, a 20-year-old with a troubled past and a rap sheet for petty crimes. Friends described him as controlling, manipulative, and prone to anger. Katherine, young and impressionable, fell under his spell. Together, they spiraled into a reckless lifestyle of late nights, drugs, and bad decisions. Meanwhile, Ruth Witter, Katherine's step-great-grandmother, lived alone in nearby Colony. At 91, Ruth was fiercely independent, known for her kindness and sharp wit. She kept valuables in her home, jewelry, cash, a tempting target for a desperate young couple. In early February 2000, Katherine and Jeffrey hatched a plan to burglarize Ruth's house, hoping for a quick score to fuel their chaotic lives. They thought it would be simple: slip in, grab the goods, and disappear. But on that freezing night, their plan would unravel into something far darker. February 12, 2000. The air was thick with frost as Katherine and Jeffrey crept toward Ruth Witter's home. The house was dark, save for a faint glow from a living room lamp. Their plan was to sneak in while Ruth slept, steal her jewelry, and be gone before dawn. But inside, something went terribly wrong. According to Katherine, Jeffrey lost control. He grabbed an electrical cord from a nearby lamp and wrapped it around Ruth's neck, strangling her in a sudden, violent act. Ruth, frail but defiant, had no chance. Her life ended in moments. Panicked, Katherine says she froze as Jeffrey barked orders. Together, they bound Ruth's hands, legs, and face with duct tape, desperate to cover their tracks. They loaded her body into a car and drove through the snowy night to Saratoga National Historical Park in Stillwater. There, they dumped Ruth's body in a snowbank, leaving her to be swallowed by the cold. The stolen jewelry? They fenced it for cash, spending the next few days partying in hotel rooms over Valentine's Day weekend as if nothing had happened. But a careless slip would soon bring the law crashing down. 6 days later, on February 18th, Ruth's body was found after Katherine confided in a friend who tipped off the Mechanicville police. That same day, state and colony police arrested Katherine and Jeffrey. Both pointed fingers at each other. Jeffrey claimed Katherine was the killer, while she insisted he strangled Ruth. The evidence, though, seemed to seal Katherine's fate. Forensic analyst Gary Veeder testified that fibers on the duct tape matched gloves worn by Katherine and Jeffrey. His findings were damning, convincing Katherine to take a plea deal in January 2001. She pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and third-degree burglary, receiving 20 years to life. She testified against Jeffrey at his trial, detailing his alleged role in the murder, but the jury didn't buy her story. Jeffrey was acquitted and walked free, while Katherine faced decades behind bars. Justice seemed served, until a shocking revelation turned everything upside down. In 2008, Gary Veeder admitted to forging test results in over 100 cases, including Katherine's. He took his own life during the investigation. Katherine's attorneys, led by public defender John Ciulla and pro bono lawyer Ben Oster, fought to vacate her plea, arguing the tainted evidence had coerced her into pleading guilty. In June 2011, a judge agreed, tossing her plea and granting a new trial. But trials are risky. Facing a potential life sentence, Katherine opted for an Alford plea in May 2012, pleading guilty to manslaughter and burglary while maintaining her innocence. Having served 12 years, she was released in July 2012. Katherine's story isn't unique, say experts. Criminologists note that young women in abusive relationships, like Katherine with Jeffrey Hampshire, often face immense pressure to commit crimes. Over 15% of female offenders cite domestic abuse as a factor, blurring the line between choice and coercion. Domestic violence advocates add that breaking this cycle is grueling. Even after prison, survivors like Katherine remain vulnerable to predatory partners, a pattern that would soon prove deadly. At 30, Katherine Seeber walked free in July 2012. John Ciulla called her a model of rehabilitation. In prison, she'd embraced faith with the Church of Jesus Christ and Latter-day Saints, taken college classes, and taught others how to escape domestic violence, a cycle she said Jeffrey Hampshire had trapped her in. She moved to Queens, New York, working as a nanny and later an office manager. She dreamed of starting over in Washington with her brother, her mother and father both gone. Ben Oster described her as upbeat and full of optimism. But her freedom was short-lived. On June 4, 2013, just 11 months after her release, Katherine was found stabbed to death in her Woodside home. The suspect? Her ex-boyfriend, Pedro Sanchez, a 38-year-old career criminal with a history of felonies. Police called it a domestic incident, a chilling echo of the abuse Katherine had fought to escape. Sanchez was charged with second-degree murder, the same charge Katherine had once faced. Her life had ended in the same tragic cycle she'd tried to break. Katherine Seeber's story is a paradox, a young woman who committed a terrible crime, sought redemption, and nearly found it, only to be pulled back into the darkness she'd fought to escape. It teaches us a haunting lesson. The cycle of violence can trap even those who seek redemption. Her journey from crime to rehabilitation, only to fall victim to the same patterns, reminds us that breaking free from abuse requires not just personal strength, but a supportive society. We must listen, intervene, and advocate for those caught in these cycles before it's too late. Pause for a second. Put yourself in Katherine's world. If you knew her and saw Jeffrey's hold over her, would you step in? Vote in our poll and share your thoughts below. What do you think? Was Katherine a victim of circumstance, or did her choices seal her fate? If this story gripped you, hit subscribe and ring the bell for more true crime every week. Support us on Patreon for exclusive case updates and behind-the-scenes content. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.
Lesson from the story of Katherine Seeber. Katherine Seeber's story reveals the devastating grip of domestic violence. At 18, she was under the influence of Jeffrey Hampshire, a controlling partner who led her into a life of crime, culminating in the murder of her step-great-grandmother, Ruth Witter. Experts note that over 15% of female offenders cite abuse as a factor, blurring the lines between choice and coercion. Katherine's later death at the hands of another abusive partner, Pedro Sanchez, underscores how hard it is to escape this cycle, even after rehabilitation. Her efforts to break free, through education and advocacy in prison, weren't enough without societal support. This teaches us that domestic violence isn't just a personal struggle, it's a systemic issue requiring intervention, awareness, and resources. We must recognize the signs, support survivors, and create safety nets to prevent tragedies like Katherine's from repeating. Lesson 2. The tainted forensic evidence in Katherine Seeber's case exposes the fragility of our justice system. Forensic analyst Gary Veter's falsified fiber tests coerced Katherine into a guilty plea, costing her 12 years in prison. His fraud, uncovered only after his 2008 suicide, affected over 100 cases, highlighting how a single weak link can derail justice. Katherine's vacated plea and Alford plea reflect a system struggling to correct its mistakes. Meanwhile, Jeffrey Hampshire's acquittal, despite Katherine's testimony, left questions of accountability unanswered. This lesson reminds us that justice relies on truth, not just evidence, and flawed systems can punish the vulnerable, like Katherine, a young woman caught in abuse, while letting others walk free. We must demand transparency, rigorous oversight, and accountability in forensics to ensure fairness, preventing lives from being upended by errors that take years to undo. Lesson 3. Katherine Seeber's transformation in prison showcases the potential for redemption, even after a heinous crime. Serving 12 years, she embraced faith, took college classes, and taught others about escaping domestic violence, earning praise as a model inmate. Yet, her story shows redemption's fragility. Released in 2012, she pursued a new life as a nanny and office manager, but her past vulnerabilities, rooted in abuse and loss, followed her. Just 11 months later, she was murdered by an abusive ex, Pedro Sanchez. This teaches us that personal growth, while powerful, isn't enough without ongoing support. Society must provide resources, counseling, safe housing, job opportunities, to protect those rebuilding their lives. Katherine's efforts to rise above her past were real, but without a safety net, she fell back into the cycle she fought to escape. Redemption is a journey, not a guarantee. Lesson 4. Katherine Seeber's life and death highlight society's role in breaking cycles of violence. Trapped by Jeffrey Hampshire's control, she committed a crime that led to 12 years in prison. After rehabilitation, she tried to start anew, but without sufficient support, she fell victim to another abuser, Pedro Sanchez. Her story shows that individuals alone can't always escape toxic patterns. Society must intervene, through education, community programs, and accessible resources for survivors of abuse. Friends, family, and institutions could have noticed Katherine's struggles earlier, potentially altering her path. Her death in 2013, in a domestic violence incident, underscores the cost of inaction. This lesson urges us to be proactive, listen to those in need, fund shelters, and advocate for policies that protect the vulnerable. Only collective action can stop cycles of violence from claiming more lives like Katherine's. Lesson 5. Katherine Seeber's choices. At 18, to follow Jeffrey Hampshire into crime, and later, to stay with another dangerous partner, shaped a tragic trajectory. Her decision to burglarize Ruth Witter's home led to a murder and 12 years in prison. Even after rehabilitation, her choice to engage with Pedro Sanchez, a known felon, ended in her own murder. This teaches us that choices, especially under pressure, carry ripple effects that can span years. While Katherine was a victim of abuse, her actions contributed to her fate, showing the complex interplay of agency and circumstance. We must weigh our decisions carefully, recognizing how they can lock us into cycles of harm or open paths to healing. For viewers, this is a call to reflect. Our choices matter, and seeking help or support can alter our course before it's too late.